14 or 15, I don't remember. She was in the youth group at the time. That's many years ago.
Right.
So I got thinking
That's been a
at
couple.
least 30 years ago.
Yeah, probably a little more even.
Gretchen will be 48.
Yeah,
Yeah, she'll be 48 in November.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They just make old people out of it.
you're telling me. And I was older when I had her than most people.
Yeah.
And she
What's
was
your last name?
Bushy, or Bushy.
Sure. Yep.
But yeah, no, this one, I'm thinking, I don't have anything good drinking. Almost $48,000 for liquor. That wasn't under food and beverage.
That's pretty interesting. Because why would you? Most city functions, you aren't gonna buy liquor.
Well, I wouldn't think so. I did family readiness volunteer for 29 years because Gretchen was in the Army. If we went somewhere, they paid our hotel, which, okay, the city, it's like the city paid the hotel, but we were on a per diem. I'm wondering
Right.
how drunk you have to get some of these people when they're trying to bargain for a better price.
I agree.
You know, if we wanted more than what our per diem was, we paid it,
Sure.
but I was a tightwad. I didn't spend all mine, so I had made the money.
A lot of ways to work on the system.
But our per diem was, you know, I don't remember how much it was today now for food and everything. But because they sent me all over the United States for training for family readiness.
Mark. All fine. How are you? Always tell. Okay. I think it was great. Warren, how are you? Good. Just gonna hang out for 2 or 3 hours. See what happens. Oh. Okay.
Pretty good. How are you? Your team is amazing.
It's different.
I certainly don't need to know that's kind of other stuff.
That's all right. It's gotta be separate.
I know. I just.
Some of the things have been cleared up, so.
We're on the avalanche. And it sounds like I got 200 staff computers set up. And the third one is still over in the library, so that's not anything you promised you were there. So
Yeah. But if they start to keep using yes, that's right.
I mean, there's a lot to clean up at the library.
like that. Yeah. Yes. We don't know.
You think you're gonna get dehydrated tonight?
I'm prepared. We'll see. You're always telling me to drink more water.
That's right.
Open the front.
I'm just letting it back. I'm the mail ones to send. And I won't sit there, so I'm crossing my legs off. Taking the other bills down.
Of course.
It's construed as assault. They're down. You know,
Did my test, and I did your story.
So
haven't seen him in a long time.
it's, sometimes it's a good thing. At least some of my friends have said that.
I've heard that before too.
I still have 2 minutes. It's okay before we get you. I'm always kind of want my last.
That's all right.
You made a comment. I'm sorry. We shouldn't be in the rest. We can go. We should. I go. They didn't do it last time.
Yeah, especially,
But we're there now.
it takes a different mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah. People are in their lessons, I think.
It does.
Because you need some professionals doing that.
Yeah.
Not as regular folks, you know. I don't know how to put that.
Are you gonna speak tonight?
Yeah.
You gotta sign in.
Yeah.
You only have 2 minutes to sign in.
Oh,
It's
I
almost
usually,
6:30. I don't wanna be the only one.
Very good.
this must be a serious meeting if you're bringing 2 bottles of water.
Yeah. Well, my wife tells me I need to drink more water, so.
So we can do more.
Yes, they got back. So, yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I wish I did. Yeah, our goal was to get them all over there. Take care of all the details, and we're kind of here for the emergencies, you know. All right, the time is now 6:30. We'll go ahead and start open public comment. That is until 7 o'clock. Gives any member of the public an opportunity to speak on any item that's not on the agenda for up to 5 minutes. There are also comment cards over here as well. So if you do wish to speak, please sign in. And we'll go ahead and get started. We have Barb Bushy.
Barb Bushy, 2037 East First Street, Fremont. Okay, my first thing, it's on Bell's, or not on Bell, on First Street, the speeding. I understand that somebody, I think Mr. Yerger wants to have a lower speed limit from Bell to Luther Road, which I totally agree with. There are two different elementary schools in that area.
This is on the agenda
Is
tonight.
it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, and then I have people coming to me, I still drive and I plan on driving for at least 5 more years. People are wanting to know why we can't have some kind of public transportation in Fremont. I know it's expensive, but if we have $16 million in the bank, you know, maybe this could be a consideration. My third thing, over the years, I think that the city has been storing some of their snow plows between the old bowling alley, and then I think whatever that business is on the corner now, it's a car sales. And I don't know if they do or if they don't, but if they own that building where the bowling alley is at, rather than spending or building a new utility building, couldn't they consider doing something there with that bowling alley if they own it? Okay. And it's across the street from Save RX if somebody's not familiar where that's at. It's on between third, I think, and fourth. Okay, my next thing is wondering why we're raising the tax levy. I don't know that much about it, but I do know that, you know, people's taxes have gone up and gone up and gone up. And I think if the public was given some kind of a reasonable reason to raise that tax levy. Is it? Okay, well, guess what? All right, next thing's my budget, or the budget for the city. And I understand this was last year's budget. So Jody didn't have anything to do with that, other than, you know, that she was finance manager. But here's my question. I did call and I was told that this public was not invited to that meeting. But online, I read how much was spent on the budget. And it was, if I read this correctly, for hotels, $201,829.69. For food and beverage, $719,803.73. For liquor, $47,725. Now, my question is, and I understand that there's things when people have to go away and they have to spend time in a hotel. And then I agree, don't put them in a dive, put them in a nice place. But I don't know if the city, I did family readiness for 29 years for the Army. I was paid a per diem when I went somewhere. If I wanted to spend that per diem, okay, that was all right. But if I wanted to go above that, that was up to me. I really, I don't mean to be smart alike, but I wonder how drunk you have to get somebody or let somebody get in order to maybe bargain for a program or something that we want. I don't know, but that just seems, with the liquor being $47,725, that just seems to me to be out of line. And I guess that's the end of it, I guess. So, but thank you for listening.
Paul Von Baron.
Paul Von Buren, 2046 East 30th. Regarding last week's budget meeting, it's going to be a little bit hard to stay away entirely from the topic on the agenda tonight about taxes, but I'll try to separate those two as best I can. But we were talking about having a budget meeting last week, and I was a little bit surprised that the budget meeting was about 2021 numbers, I believe, that were already closed out. If there was no mention of where we are in 2022, and this all does make a point. And if you're going to discuss the budget, it seems logical to say, where are we? Maybe last year versus year to date or something like that. We've got a 2-year cycle. So it's a good time to review. The idea was correct. But we don't know where we are in 22. And we're, at least tonight, going to be talking about options for revenue, that kind of thing. But these are more questions than anything. If it's a 2-year budget, I guess number one, are we going to review it? Maybe I did miss it. But part of our budget review is not only income, it's expenses. I don't know of anybody or any corporations or any business that will not sit down and review a budget with an eye toward not only what are we going to take in, it's what did we commit to? And there was no apparent discussion of that. So and that leads to the point that Barb made. One of the interesting things in the notes, Jody, I believe that was yours, that said rule of thumb says a city this size should have roughly $4 million, something like that, I think, in reserves. And yet we have $16 million in cash reserves. Now, part of that, I believe, is just, I'm not sure where it all comes from, but I believe part of that is the fact that in past years, we've over budgeted, maybe come in under projections, and been able to squirrel away some monies in cash reserves. And that's just good financial soundness. But when we have 4 times as much in reserves as we say we need, and I can tell you, if you haven't walked your wards in a while, you really ought to do that. It is, you wouldn't, well, you may not be surprised, but the amount of frustration right now with property taxes, and now add the inflationary pressure, add an economy in a recession, I can tell you that a good number of people in this city are hurting. So the question becomes, and especially with things like Costco removing, what is it, in excess of $150 million last year from the tax rolls, why would we have such a cash reserve with the obligations that we have right now? When the people of Fremont are hurting, when you have an excess, that's the money of the taxpayer. And it seems reasonable to either use that to reduce property taxes or use that in some way to support our people. Okay, I got to stay away from the tax project. Number one, I'll talk about that later, but here's my point. If we're going to look at options for revenue without considering options to decrease our expenses, with no discussion there, without considering the people of Fremont, I think we have to sit back and seriously ask ourselves what we're doing as a city. And more importantly, I think you have to ask yourself, how do you measure what we're doing as a city? What we're doing as a city? Mr. Mayor, you and I have had this conversation, but the point of it is Fremont is more, I know our mantra for the last 10 to 15 years has been jobs and growth, but Fremont is more than people who work here, new businesses coming, expanding the footprint. It's more than that. Fundamentally, it's got to be about the people. And unless our people at the end of this budget cycle are safer, happier, and more prosperous, in my estimation, we're just not doing our job. A couple of years ago, I handed out a graph that I did from IRS and Department of Revenue data. And basically what it showed is the best we have done are measures of bringing in more people to pay the taxes, more taxable property, and better jobs. Basically what it said is all 3 of those measures have failed. The closest one bringing in incomes, I'm sorry,
That's time.
is roughly, incomes are lagging about 50%. In other words, property taxes are going up almost twice as fast as incomes are in Fremont. So it's a good time to ask the question, what are we really doing?
Okay, this is open public comment. If you do wish to speak, come and please sign in. There's also comment cards. You can go ahead and state your name and address and go ahead and let me finish what you're doing.
Brian Riley, I'm representing.
When you get up there.
Good evening. Don't normally do this. This is new to me. My name is Brian Riley, and I'm the president of DP Management. We represent the mall for its owner. And so we try to make recommendations to improve the mall and try to find tenants to lease space at the mall. And the only reason I'm here is to let the council know that in the coming months, hopefully sooner than later, we will be proposing an EED, a 1% sales tax on the mall to help fund improvements and tenant improvements, enhancements to the mall, and improve the mall overall. It just seemed like it made sense to give you all a heads up that we're going to be coming forward with that. We'll provide information about what we intend to do on behalf of the owner. And I can also add that we do have a couple of tenants that are very close to being able to come to Fremont. And this is going to be a critical piece of it. It's no secret that getting commercial tenants into shopping centers nowadays is an expensive proposition. So we'll hopefully be prepared to answer your questions. I'm sure there will be some. I'm going to restate that it is because taxes have been an important issue brought up by your constituents. It's a sales tax that you only pay if you choose to shop the mall. And we've seen it implemented throughout the state in a number of different places, 2% in some cases. We've done it ourselves in some of the shopping centers that we own, and it has been very successful. And we have not seen, in fact, we've seen sales growth since retail sales tax contribute to the community. We hope that this will eventually be a success. Any questions for me at this time?
You can't ask them.
All right. It's a good rookie lesson there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, just, no, now they just skip right in the
Go down a couple more.
Nobody wants to be front row seats.
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street here in Fremont. I don't have a complaint, I just have a comment, and this is concerning your budget talks. I'd like to know if you are still entertaining the thought of getting any grant money through your safer grants and staffing for adequate firefighters and emergency response. I'm just curious because 14 million was awarded and it's on their website for FEMA. And over half of that was given for recruitment, or excuse me, I'll back up. Less than half was for recruitment and retention. And the majority of the monies were funding for hiring of firefighters. Nebraska was not awarded anything. But on the assistance, the firefighter grants, there were several grants that were given, but only 2 were given in Nebraska. Lincoln got one for operations and safety, and the Dalton Volunteer. In the past, there were several communities, very small communities, Waco, Falls City, Eagle, Utan, and Wynot, all volunteers, that had received assistance to firefighter grants. I don't know who writes the grants for the fire department, but I've written grants myself and have been awarded them for other entities. And I'd like this to have more, I guess, assistance from the city towards the firemen and for the police to attain these. Because these are very important grants that we're not tapping into, and they're available. When there's 200 million in grants being awarded through FEMA for various aspects, 110 million for assistance to fire grants, and over 14 million of that is also awarded for the safer grants. I'd like more to be done and maybe be more proactive. And I'd like to find out, what are we not doing or what are we not filling out? We haven't had a grant here in Fremont. Why have we not? Weston has gotten a grant. Ralston has gotten a grant. But Omaha Fire, a paid department, and Lincoln Fire has also gotten grants. So it isn't limited to just volunteers. We have had a need in this community, and in your budgets, you were told last year you were going to be getting money to hire these firefighters, and we were going to do that. We wouldn't have to budget it. And it was taken off the budget, even though you voted to follow through with it, because we were going to make sure we were going to get a safe grant. So far, that hasn't come through. And this is August 2022. And the new round of grant applications is coming around. So a request to the city administration and also the council to be proactive and stay on it and help our firefighters, our emergency responders, all the first responders, whether it's dispatch and police, help attain these grants. Thank you.
I'm here. I'm walking.
All right, I want to welcome everybody. Before we begin, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and open the regular city council meeting. The time is 7 o'clock. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call.
Please cast your vote for roll call. 8 council members are present, Mayor.
Item 1 is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the August 30th, 2022 regular meeting. Councilman Gibson,
So moved.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Next is mayor's comments. I would like to recognize 2 employees for their dedication to the city of Fremont for years of service. We had Todd Coffey, 30 years of service. Todd has been serving the community with the Fremont Fire Department since 1992. Want to thank Todd for 30 years. Tom Stamper, 5 years of service. Tom is celebrating 5 years in the utility warehouse as a stores associate. So for 30 years and 5 years, I want to thank both of those individuals. I also want to remind the public that next Tuesday, September 6th, we will have a special city council meeting and planning commission meeting to go over the draft comprehensive plan. This has been about 18 months of work to kind of get to this point. And so it's going to be at 5:30 here in the council chambers. And again, this will be an opportunity to kind of speak to the actual plan and hear where we're at right now with the comprehensive plan. So encourage all those to attend. That's all for my comments. We'll move on to public hearings. Item 2 is resolution 2022-145, Class D liquor license application of Sunrise Group, Inc., doing business as Expressway Food Mart at 209 South Bell Street. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is before you. There's actually, the next item also is very closely related. They were both noticed on August 20th for the public hearing tonight. One issue of note is the supporting documents for the approval by the police department was not included in the backup. I was out last week and I did receive that during that time. And so I would like to ask the city council to receive that into the record. There was a positive recommendation from the planning department for this item. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilman Legband,
I make a motion to receive.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Any questions for staff? As we pass these out. Okay, seeing no comments, I will open the public hearing. Anybody from the public here to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Legband,
If there are no more comments, I would like to make a motion to approve resolution 2022-145.
Councilman Jensen,
I will second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 3, resolution 2022-146, Class D liquor license application of Sunrise Group, Inc., doing business as Expressway Food Mart at 1800 East Military Avenue.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, this is the same business, same operator. It's for the location at 1800 East Military. The public hearing was noticed on August 20th, and the report that I provided previously includes the recommendation on this item as well from the police department. I'd be happy to answer questions you might have.
Okay, questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? If not, I would take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2022-146.
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second the motion.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 4, resolution 2022-147 to allow a conditional use permit for an outdoor commercial recreation use for Woody's Airboat Tours, generally located at 2865 and 2835 Big Island Road.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request for a conditional use permit for a outdoor commercial recreation facility, specifically for an airboat tour facility. The specifications in the UDC are that the use is 300 feet from an SRAR, MHGI, or AV district, which it is. Primary access is from a collector or arterial roadway. Big Island Road meets the definition in the UDC as a collector road, although it's not on the functional classification map as a collector road. The activities are limited such that noise levels at the property line do not exceed a certain amount during certain times. The operators are going to operate at wake speed until they're in the middle of the river before they take off. That'll minimize the noise so that they meet these requirements. And the final requirement is that the use operates in accordance with other federal, state, and local laws. This is in the floodway. A floodplain development permit and a no-rise certificate have been provided. Staff recommends approval and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Councilman Yerger,
Any issues with the adjacent property owners?
No, in fact, there were a number of adjacent property owners who showed up in support at the Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you.
any other questions? Thank you. I'll now open up the public hearing, resolution 2022-147.
Good evening, David Mitchell, Fremont, Nebraska, appearing on behalf of the applicant. Don't have a lot to add to the report. Jennifer did a very good and thorough job laying out what we're seeking here. I do have Tony Hussey and Jim Norwood with me, who will be operating the business. They bring decades and decades of experience on the river, not only recreationally, but they're part of the same fabric that have helped with flood efforts, search and rescue and whatnot. It's a pretty neat community. Just by way of brief history that's not in the report, as all of you know, Tim Bryson had Bryson's Airboat Tours for many, many years. And after the last flood, I think that was kind of the last straw that Tim had as far as the airboat business. And he decided to move down to Florida and operate down there, and he's getting his business up and going there, but left a big void in the community from a tourism standpoint in particular. I remember the Chamber of Commerce publications, GFDC, City of Fremont, Key to Fremont. You almost always saw Bryson's Airboat Tours on there as a key tourism component for our community. This gives us an opportunity to bring that back to the community with two hardworking individuals who want to make a go of it. So we'd respectfully request your support. And if there's any questions I can provide to you, I'd be happy to address them.
Any questions for the applicant?
Great. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional comments from council? Councilman Vaughn.
Just wanted to thank the applicants for bringing back such a wonderful opportunity for tourism in our community. I think it's great to fill that void, as you said. So thank you, guys. I'm in support.
Councilman Legman.
If there's no other comments, again, I'd like to thank them also, but I would like to make a motion then to approve resolution 2022-147.
Councilwoman Ganem.
I'll second that motion.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you, thank you. Ordinance 5628, requesting change of zone from R rural to GI general industrial for approximately 10.98 acres generally located at 602 East County Road T in Fremont, Nebraska.
Good evening, Mayor, members of this council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. The applicant for this has requested that it be held over until the next meeting. Part of what the applicant wants to do is to bring a rail spur across so that All Metals can operate their recycling business up there. However, there is a major gas line that needs to be lowered, and they're trying to figure out what all will be involved in the cost of that. So they're not sure at this point if they want to move forward with this. So again, they've requested that this be deferred until the next meeting when they have a better idea of what the costs would be.
Take a motion to continue. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to continue.
Councilman Yerger,
Second motion to continue.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor, to continue.
Thank you.
Next is a consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council, staff, or the public? I will start. I'd like to remove item 17 and item 25. Councilman Gibson. Councilman Yerger,
Yes, I'd like to have discussion on item 24, please. And unless staff is going to remove item 15. Okay, I won't take it. Staff will take it.
okay.
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. I would just ask for light discussion, 18 and 19 be pulled.
Jennifer McDuffie, Director of HR. As Councilman Yerger mentioned, can we please, I'd like to pull 15 for a correction on the resolution.
There's no other items. I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 6 through 14, 16, 20 through 23. Councilman Gibson,
I make that motion.
Councilman Legman,
I'll second that.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 15, resolution 2022-153, approving renewal of Best Care Program.
Jennifer McDuffie, Director of Human Resources. So this is the renewal for the Employee Assistance Program. Typically goes on the consent agenda. However, I did make an error on the resolution on the third, whereas we are actually requesting a 2-year renewal instead of a 1-year renewal. We do give a bit of a price break on the 2-year renewal. So we are requesting a 2-year renewal. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions for staff? Councilman Legman,
So do we just need to make an amendment to it?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Councilman Yerger,
So you anticipate there's only one amendment that needs to be made in the third whereas statement? Is that what I understood you to say?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, I guess I would take exception. I think that the opening paragraph calls for a 1-year renewal. That would need to be fixed to be a 2-year renewal. And then the amounts, the third whereas statement has 1 year in it, the now be it therefore statement has 1 year in it. And the amounts, if you calculate those at 286 at the 2-year rate, we need to change the amounts to the 6,080.36 is based on a calculation of the 1-year rate, I believe. So we need to fix the amounts as well as the statements for 1 year to 2 year. You agree?
The 2076 is the 2-year per employee rate.
Right. And if you multiply that times 286, the amount is not 6,080 and 36.
Yeah, I think
That's the 21-26 rate. That's the 1 year rate. So I think the value, overall value is 59.37.36 for 2 years.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman, you're gonna just recommend amending the resolution for 2 years instead of 1 year. And that would include changing the amounts as well.
So you're not going to recommend specific language here. We're just going to make a broad change to be 2 year
Yep.
and fix the amounts on the fly.
calculation is the
Is that what
calculation.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? If there's not, Councilman Vaughn.
I would just make a motion to approve as amended.
Okay, we'll make a motion to amend. Yep. To update the 2 year and the corrected amounts. Councilman Lakeman.
I don't think we needed the correct amounts, just the 2 year. Okay, all right. I'll second that motion then.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0 to amend, Mayor.
Okay, now I take a motion to the resolution as amended. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to approve amended resolution 2022-153.
Councilman Yerger.
Second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 17 is move to confirm appointment of Mason Ingram as firefighter EMT per mayor recommendation. Mason went through our civil service process and really excited to be able to present him as a firefighter tonight, new firefighter. So I would take a motion to approve the appointment of Mason Ingram. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Vaughn.
Well, second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Mason, come up and congratulations. Okay, moving on to item 18 is a motion to approve the recommendation of the mayor to reappoint Ryan Fiala to the library board with a term ending August 2026. I want to thank Ryan for his willingness to step up and serve on the library board. I appointed him previously to fulfill a position vacancy, and he's now coming forward again to have another term. So again, appreciate Ryan on the library board and his willingness to step up. Take any questions? Councilman Jensen.
Just so I'm clear, you said you previously appointed, what, you filled out a term, now he's applying for the next term, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, it was, I think, Tom Adamson's term. He took over and now I'm reappointing him to a full term. Okay, any comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. I don't have any negative things to say. I think Fiala was a good fit. He's attended meetings well, and he did fulfill an unexpired term, so he hasn't been on there for very long. I just appreciate that there are people that are within our community that continue to want to serve without any stipend pay. And that goes along with the next one that you're going to consider as well. Thank you.
There's no other comments. I take a motion to approve the appointment of Ryan Fiala. Councilman Yerger.
Yeah, is the appointee in present tonight?
No.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation to appoint Ryan Fiala to the library board.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 19 is a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Joy McKay to the Planning Commission with term ending April 30th, 2023. Also very pleased tonight to present Joy McKay to the Planning Commission. Joy is a very long serving member of the Fremont community. She's the executive director of the of Habitat for Humanity and is very involved and passionate about affordable housing and making our community a great place to live, work, and raise a family. So I'm very excited to be able to bring Joy forward today to the Planning Commission. She will be in the term of Scott Washburn, who resigned, and will fulfill that term until April 30th of next year. Take any questions. Councilman Legman.
I have no questions. I just, again, would like to thank her for volunteering to fill this term, and none of these things are easy. They're time consuming. So I sure appreciate someone volunteering like this. So I make a motion to approve recommendation.
Councilwoman Ganem.
I would second that motion.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 24 is a resolution 2022-158 authorizing mayor to sign municipal annual certification of program compliance form. I have staff report.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Dave Godican, Director of Public Works. This item is an item that we do annually due to the city receiving gas tax funds through the state of Nebraska Department of Transportation from the Federal Highway Administration. We receive funds every year for the operation of our roadway program, and part of our obligation then is that we have to have a reporting system in place. We have to have a 1 and 6 year roadway plan. We have to have a licensed street superintendent, which Mark Villadal is. I'm also a licensed street superintendent, so we're kind of doubled up on that. So what you're doing is certifying that we've administered our program last year within the requirements of the feds, which we have. You know, we've got a 1 and 6 year program. We have a financial records program. We have a licensed street superintendent, et cetera. And then also certifying that we're going to carry forward doing that as well.
Questions for staff? Councilman Yerger.
Thank you for reiterating what this is about, Dave, with regards to just making sure we've got our nuts and bolts in front of the state. Correct. So it's kind of perfunctory in that regard. My reason for wanting to make sure that I understood, we're not filing a 1 and 6 year plan at this time. We don't need to anymore as a part of this documentation.
We're not required to file one, but we are required to have one.
Right. And we have one.
Yes.
And the one that we are referencing here is the one that we passed during the budget.
Was it during the budget? I think it was back in like February or March that we did it. It was the one for the year 2022. You do it this is done on an annual basis, where a lot of our things are done fiscal year. Though the 1 and 6 is an annual, so it goes by January through December.
Okay. We're not filing this with the state, so it's probably not relevant at this point. You'll be doing another one come January, I assume.
Yes.
I just was interested in knowing, does this 1 and 6 year plan that you're referring to by reference include the Yeager Street intersection or work or no?
Up at 23rd Street?
Yes.
No, that was taken out of the 1 and 6 year plan by council action.
Okay, thank you.
That was approved.
Just wanted to verify. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you. Comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, take additional comments from council or a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Yerger.
If there aren't any additional comments, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 2022-158.
Okay, Councilman Vaughn. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 25 is a motion to commission city administration and legal to investigate and prepare for council consideration at the September 27th, 22 meeting, a proposal that would facilitate using a portion of the city's ARPA funds for premium pay to full-time police officers, firefighters, emergency medical, EMS responders, and dispatchers for time spent responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is a Councilman Ellis added this item, and I'd like to give you an opportunity if you'd like to open on this.
Thank you. You know, I've been doing a lot of research on the ARPA funds, what other cities are doing with them. And, you know, I believe as a council, this money came in under our watch. And so I know initially it was earmarked for flooding control or something like that. And no discussions have ever been openly made concerning the ARPA funds, which is essentially $4.4 million that was given to us by the federal government. So this is not money that came out of the citizens' pockets. This is federal money. So in my investigation, it seems like a lot of cities are moving on this, and we're kind of way behind the 8 ball. A lot of cities are issuing premium payment to their first responders for the time they spent responding to the COVID pandemic. And so that's why I simply just added this as an agenda item to open up the discussion. I know the ARPA funds are sitting there. I think the regulations have lightened quite a bit. You've got cities like Norfolk that are using it for helping them build a transportation system, a busing system within their city in partnership with their county. So I hear the response from our citizens. I believe that the best course of action would be for us as a city. Like I said, we're kind of behind the 8 ball here. We've not had any discussion, whether it be public or via the council, to start talking about this. This is money that came under our watch, and I believe we as councilmen should have some input on how this money is spent. And so tonight, I simply just want to commission the city administration and the legal to investigate what it would take to pay some of the 4.4 million, very small portion of it, for premium pay to our police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical responders and dispatchers for the time that they had to spend during the pandemic. So any questions?
Councilwoman Ganem.
Well, kind of a combined question here, because I think we should discuss the use of ARPA funds when we're reviewing and prioritizing the use of all ARPA funds. And we had discussed, you're right, we discussed water issues, the drainage issue in particular. Now, I'm not anti police or firemen, and it's a good use. And I think we should be including that. I'm not so sure. Are we going to be discussing the total picture and the direction for use of ARPA funds at the September 27th meeting? I guess that's a staff question.
So I can address that. So I just want to back up and go back to how, first of all, the discussion on the drainage and using the ARPA kind of came about. Number one, we went through everybody knows the horrific floods of 2019, which the Joint Water Management Board was set up to start evaluating how we can protect our community in an event something like happens like that before or again. And what that said, of course, was we are in the process of a few different studies that are addressing drainage around the city of Fremont. One of them is the Elkhorn Township. The JEO is contracted. There's been public meetings. We're getting very close to be able to have a solution to be able to help essentially with drainage in our southeast corner of town and for the future of Fremont. And we knew we were going through that process at the last budget. And so when we were discussing the budget, it was clear at that time that we were going to use the American Rescue Plan as a consensus, those dollars towards the drainage for the community. And that not only affects the whole town, but the protection of the town to make sure something like 2019 doesn't happen again, and we can do whatever we can. And so that was a direction, and that's been the direction we've taken as the city, as a staff, and addressing the American Rescue Plan dollars. I hope we can come very close, very soon with a, proposal. It's going to be a lot of money to do this. There's a lot of federal dollars out there, but it's going to take city funds as well as county to be able to accomplish what's going to have to be done for drainage. And so I believe that is the best use of the dollars and where we need to focus for the American Rescue Plan. And those are just my thoughts on giving the background on that. And again, there'll be more discussions in regards to that, but I believe, the protection of the community in regards to the drainage and moving water in and out of Fremont is a paramount priority. Councilman Vaughn.
I'm just curious if anybody knows if there's a timeline, a use it or lose it, drop dead date.
Supposed to have.
My understanding is it's 2026 is when they have to be spent.
Councilman Yerger.
So I'd like to understand a little better with regards to how much funding might be in the request for firefighters and police officers, emergency medical, et cetera. So your proposal doesn't indicate what amount you might have been considering. So did you have an amount in mind relative to what should be investigated? And if so, how much that would amount to out of the ARPA funds that we have available to us?
Just by what other communities of Dodge County sheriffs are getting $5,000 a piece. I believe it's either passed or is going to be voted on soon or might have already passed. So if you're looking at that and you're looking at the number of firefighters and policemen, we're looking at probably, I'm ballparking this thing, but 400,000. So instead of 4.4 million, we'd be looking at still $4 million in the ARPA fund. So this is a pretty small piece of the pie that we would use to show the appreciation for the men and women that served during the pandemic.
Councilman Legban.
Yeah, I'm all for helping them for everything they did during the COVID. But we have made a lot of promises to a lot of our constituents about getting drainage taken care of first. Once we use the ARPA funds that we have and taking care of the drainage issues, if there's money left over, I'm all for it. But we've made some promises about getting our ditches cleared out, having those drainage studies. I think that needs to be done first. And if we have money left over, hallelujah, let's do it. But right now, I think we've kind of said we were going to take care of these drainage issues for past year and a half, 2 years. We've been promising this.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Kind of going off of Mr. Legban's comments as well, too. I would move that we continue this item to the city council meeting in the future when we'll be discussing the entire use of Fremont's ARPA funds. That doesn't mean drop what he has. That means that we would include and continue the discussion when we have all the information and we talk about the use of ARPA funds.
Okay. Councilman Ellis. Sally.
A lot of communities had their strategic meetings back in February and March, April. And so I understand that if you want to push this down the kick the can, what I would like to know is, because I did my research and I cannot find any one specific vote that was done by this council to designate that money. I could be wrong. So if you could find me that vote that the council voted in unison to spend the $4.4 million, I would appreciate that, because I couldn't find it.
Councilman Legban.
I think Ms. Ganem had a motion and I would just like to second that motion.
Okay, it's a motion to continue, right? Okay. Cast your votes.
There's been no public discussion. That should be point of order.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 6-2, Mayor.
Okay, item 26 is a resolution 2022-149 authorizing contract for City Physicians Clinic, Inc., doing business as Methodist Physicians Clinic. Of staff report. I can do this. So last meeting, we appointed Dr. Todd Eberly as our city physician. This was an item, this contract was attached to that item, and we needed to be able to split those and have two separate votes. So this is again bringing that back, the contract to approve Dr. Todd Eberly as our city physician. So I would take any questions. Councilman Yerger.
So his appointment was approved at the last meeting, and so now we're here to look at this contract. And I'm curious as to whether or not in the construct of this, there was a comparability study done by the consultant relative to city physician pay.
Legal.
Yeah, Councilman Yerger, I'm not sure if there was a study done, but we want to avoid discussions about negotiations with public and private entities regarding collective bargaining that could impact collective bargaining, but
It's just a question as to was a study done, yes or no?
oh, I do not believe there was a study
Okay,
done.
and that's all I was asking. Will there be a salary ordinance amendment coming forthwith with regards to the job title and the pay grades associated with this position?
We'll explore that as well.
So we didn't have a plan to make an adjustment to the salary ordinance?
No, but I can check and see if we need to.
We definitely need to, because this is a officer position and it would be titled and it would show up in the step pay areas, just like the other contracted employees we have, I assume.
Yeah, the city physician ordinance itself just has some requirements in there that were attached to the contract, but we can see what the salary requirements would be as well. Because he's getting I guess, not really a salary.
Well, so another question that I would have is, so currently we have in city ordinance that it's this position pays $50 a month. I assume that it was budgeted at $50 a month, so we're in a budget at $600. The duties are listed in the Fremont Municipal Code. Are the duties that are being expected under this contract more than what were expected under the municipal code when we were paying $50 a month?
I'm not sure what the $50 a month, when that was approved or how that was passed, but this contract fulfills our obligations under the city physician section of city code.
Well, it doesn't answer my question with regards to, we're paying a lot more under this contract than what we were paying under city ordinance before as defined, because we have yet to change the city ordinance.
I'm not sure. I know this is the first time we've actually officially done this with a contract with the city physician, and they're doing it pretty dirt cheap. And Methodist was pretty, I guess, they required most of the language in here that would be outside of what code requires.
Why do we have a contract with the facility rather than the doctor per se? Since this is an officer position, we're not putting Methodist on our, as an officer of the city of Fremont, we are putting Dr. Eberly in particular on. So why isn't this contract just with Dr. Eberly?
He is, and from my understanding of it, one was that was a preference by Methodist, and two, it allows, if a substitute is needed, we can have a substitute. So the council would be approving effectively Methodist serving as city physician, even though Dr. Eberly will be the city physician.
So if Dr. Everly, for whatever reason, couldn't fulfill his obligations as an appointed city physician, who would make the appointment to replace? Under contract?
Yeah, the mayor would make another appointment.
Methodist has no.
Dr. Eberly is our city physician.
I understand. My question is, if he can't fulfill his duties, then we have to change it. We have a contract here. This contract with Dr. Eberly is terminated if Dr. Eberly leaves.
Right.
It's not a continuation with a contract with Methodist for a different doctor, which was not yet appointed. This contract is null and void if Dr. Eberly leaves. Is that correct?
Correct. It could be terminated ab initio, right, when he's done filling the position.
Okay, and you don't know whether or not we have an expanded role and scope expectation of Dr. Eberly with regards to what was performed before by a city physician who served on the Board of Health?
I'm not sure when that ordinance was amended.
I can speak to that. There's no, other than whatever Dr. Seitz did before as a city physician, there's no other responsibilities that we're requiring Dr. Eberly to do. It was essentially, I asked him if he'd be willing to do it. In that process, we needed to have a contract, as that was the way that we were able to do that with him. And that's why we are today, where we are today. And it was negotiated with legal as well as Methodist. And other than serving on the Board of Health, which, and advising the city in any type of, situation involving a health crisis, that would be his extent of his duties.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And the other reason then for asking about the $100 per hour and whether or not the salary ordinance, administrative salary ordinance was going to change. Those officer positions that are under contract are currently listed on the administrative salary ordinance. All of them are under contract and the STEP programs there. I didn't see any STEP discussion in this contract. But nevertheless, all the other officer positions that we've been putting of late have been left on the salary ordinance, even though they're under contract. And so this one would, I assume, need to be there if they're going to be comparably treated. And so I'm wondering, is there any provision here for adjustments? Other than the $100 an hour, that's flat. There's no step adjustments associated with this officer position.
Not that I'm aware of.
And no COLAs.
No. More of an independent contractor.
As they all are. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Ellis.
I'm just a little, I'm uncomfortable with this. We have a municipal code in front of us that we're supposed to be following.
Right.
And right now, we're kind of going outside the realm of that. All it would take is for this council to put together an ordinance to change our municipal code to allow this to happen. I'm not comfortable with our city physician being on contract with a corporate healthcare company. I'm uncomfortable signing a contract as a city when we're simply just in the municipal code simply says we have to have a city physician and they get $50 a month. And so if we want to go down this path, I don't mind it, but I think we need to back up and change our municipal code so that we're not continually breaking our own rules.
Are you talking about section 2-514?
Yeah.
No, that's been all complied with.
But we're giving him a salary. It's not in there. It says in the salary that the physician makes $50 an hour. I'm not sure where that's at. Or $50 a month. So is that in the pay or where does that come from?
I'm not sure when that was. It might be referenced in the salary ordinance, but I tell you, if we want a city physician, that's going to be impossible. But
if what?
If you want a city physician to be able to serve it all, you're not going to find one for $50 a month. And there's section that 2-514 city physicians' duties, they shall perform such other duties as may be required by mayor and council. So the council does have authority to require other duties of the city physician. But again, glad he's volunteering to serve because we definitely need that role filled, especially with the Board of Health obligations. So.
Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I guess that was my question. The city physician, our city physician actually do anything before before we had the pandemic and we had to sit on a board? I don't think they ever did anything at all. This is a whole lot of much ado about nothing.
Okay. Any comments from the public?
Susan Jacobus, 1805 North D Street. I think one of the points that's been missed, it's not in your code. You're allowed to pay $50 a month according to your salary ordinance. You have other part-time things that are listed in your salary ordinance. And Councilman Jensen, you are correct. Until the pandemic, I don't believe they ever met. A comment was made by Ms. Sanders at the last meeting about the discussion of this contract could also, or it might have been Ms. McDuffie, that this could also play into workman's comp and helping file those because it's very onerous paperwork. I still don't understand why you're contracting with the clinic rather than the individual. But I don't disagree with following this through, but I think you need to take a step back and continue this simply because you shouldn't be going against your own municipal code. It's on there for a reason. If you don't like the rules and you don't like the way it's written, then change them so you can proceed to do what you want. Otherwise, how do you enforce municipal code on others? You've got a lot of codes on these books. If I infringe on them, I'm sure I will be taken to task. But how dare you take that same risk and infringe on the code and not be taken to task? Change your code. If it doesn't work for what you want to do because it was written so many years ago, and now things have changed and you have to entertain the thought of contracting, which is not a bad idea, then change your code.
Paul Von Baron, 2446 East 30th Street. If I talk very long, you're going to figure out, I don't know what I'm talking about. But there comes a point when you can apply some common sense to things like this. In the past, it hasn't been flagrant, but we have tended to operate like a small town. You know me, trust me, this is what we intend. Here's I'd never let that happen, whatever that is. Councilman Jensen, you're exactly right. This is probably more discussion than it deserves. My only point is that in the real world, and I think the size of the city we are growing and functioning in, you're not bound by what you intend. You are bound by what you state. And however this needs to happen, I think this is just one of a lot of little things that we have the opportunity to clean up right now. I don't see it as a big project, but then again, I don't know the intricacies. I'm just saying common sense says that if you are diligent in following what you say, it's pretty hard to get in trouble. And I just suggest whatever we need to do, let's make sure the ordinances are in line with what we intend and what we say. Thanks.
Councilman Ellis.
The constituent said it better than I did. I'm sorry about, I really believe we just need, I'm not against this. Let's just take a step back, modify our code. I will even vote on suspending the rules and putting it through because it has to be an ordinance change. So I'm going to, I'm sorry, I'm going to let other people speak.
Okay, any other comments from council? Councilman Yerger.
I think what Councilman Ellis is getting at is ordinance 5624 was just recently passed. And as a part of that code, we did discuss whether or not the city physician needed to be changed in that table from $50 a month to something other than, even though we weren't yet approving the contract. That ordinance needs to be rectified. It needs to be rectified in part to lay foundation for being able to contract at a value something other than what we have in our municipal code. So I don't object to this either in that context, but I do believe we ought to be following the rules and regulations that we just passed. So I'm going to suggest that we continue this item to the next meeting so that the ordinance 5624 can be modified so that it would not be in conflict with what we're proposing to do in this contract. And we can deal with the contract at the next meeting simultaneously. And I agree with Councilman Ellis, we can agree to waive and move it right on through. But I think that the code does need to be fixed. We should have fixed the ordinance at the last meeting when it was challenged, and we chose not to. And now here we are, stuck with an ordinance that doesn't agree with what we want to contract. So make a motion to continue the contract approval to the next meeting, preceded by a modification to ordinance 5624 to reflect $100 an hour pay.
Okay, that is a motion to continue, so we need to have a second and be able to vote on it. So Councilman Legman.
Can I ask a question to legal?
It's a motion to continue. We need to vote on it. Is there a second? Councilman Gibson?
Second.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 5-3, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to item 27 is a Councilman Yerger and Councilmember Ganem item, ordinance 5629, amending Chapter 5, Article 3 of the Fremont Municipal Code, Section 5-301, speed regulations. So I'd either have Councilman Yerger or Councilman Ganem want to open up this item. Councilman Yerger.
Yes, this is on the agenda tonight. It's been something that's been brought to council in prior meetings, and it was just recently on the council agenda under the traffic committee report that we got a report on at the last meeting. Residents along First Street have complained about speed and student safety, elementary school safety for some time. And there was a petition that was included in the packet as evidence of the fact that this isn't a one-off, that there are many residents and elementary student parents that are concerned about the traffic speed on that street. And so this is a simple change to change the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour between Bell Street and Luther. Today, city code requires there to be sort of a rolling speed limit. That is, because there are two schools here, Grant School and Howard School, there always has been in municipal code, although just recently signs were put up because we weren't adhering to city code. There was supposed to be a 25 mile an hour speed zone already on part of this stretch. This would put this stretch all at 25 miles an hour. The police department has indicated it's near impossible to enforce a rolling speed limit on this street because it changes back and forth too rapidly for them to accommodate the speed changes. I looked into this at some time after visiting with the residents in the area again, because I was curious as to how long does it take to travel. This is about a 1 mile stretch between Luther and Bell Street. It takes roughly 24 seconds mathematically, and I ran it and timed it in my vehicle as well. Actually, it's less than 24 seconds because you're supposed to have dropped speed twice during that, which I did not calculate in. So the real question before council is elementary school safety worth 20 to 24 seconds out of someone's day? I think the only answer to that can be yes. Student safety's got to be paramount. The other streets that were comparables that were discussed in the traffic report aren't really comparable because they already break up the speed limit. And so they aren't traveling that same distance at 35 miles an hour either. I walk this area on a regular basis when I'm exercising my dog, and I have seen on more than one occasion where vehicles blow through the student traffic light stops. I don't know if it's because they're not paying attention or they're distracted the sun. I don't know what the problems are, but all I know is student safety is paramount here, and slowing the speed limit down 5 miles an hour to accommodate that student safety is not particularly onerous. So I encourage us to do that. It's a simple table fix. In the packet material, you'll see that First Street under 25 miles an hour has some red line in it. It was already supposed to be, at least in part, 25 miles an hour. And now it would be 25 miles an hour the whole distance. And in a couple of other sections, let's see, in the 30-mile-an-hour section, we also have some language changes. So it's a very perfunctory change to lower the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour. And I'll take any questions.
Councilman Vaughn.
Just some comments. I was initially against this when I first read it. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. And similar to Mr. Yerger, I didn't time it out quite as accurately as you did, but I noticed that it was very negligible in its totality, especially when you consider the 25-mile-an-hour reductions at the school zone. So I'm in support. I make a motion to approve.
Okay, we'll see what Councilwoman Ganem.
Well, I was just going to add to the comments because I did my homework as well too, and certainly sat out on the streets. And I know the traffic committee certainly did their homework, and showed that there wasn't any more excessive speeding on that street than others. However, I watched after school, before school, watched at Howard, at certainly Grant School, and there is police presence on occasion. And as a principal, when I was at Howard, I was so pleased to see the police cars circle. They're there right after school. In between times, it's different. I watched after school, not all the kids crossed right at that crosswalk either. So that probably needs to be reiterated for safety for the kids to be crossing at the crosswalk. That's what it's for. And consistency is what I know Chief Elliott had said, that if it could be consistent, it's much easier to check the speeds limits. And I certainly wouldn't put my name on something that I didn't think would be helpful. Anyway, it can't be hurtful. It could only be helpful. At least it's worth a try. And I've talked with a couple residents and they said, oh yeah, we need to slow it down some. So maybe if we drop it down by that 5-mile limit, maybe they'll only go 30 miles an hour or 35 instead of 40. So it would be behoove us at least give consideration to this. And I would second the motion. No, that's okay. Doesn't matter who.
Okay. Any other questions for Councilman Muir or Councilwoman Ganem? Comments from the public?
Barb Bushy, 2037 East First here in Fremont. And I am begging you to pass this. I've lived on that street for 42 years. And the traffic has just become, it's ridiculous. And it doesn't make any difference what time of the day, and not all kids are going to ride. Well, they can't, I think it's against the law to ride your bike on a sidewalk. I could be wrong. But this actually, besides Howard and Grant, it involves Johnson Crossing. Because those kids, a lot of them have to walk down First Street to get to Luther to go across the street. So please give this some consideration. Thank you.
Mike McPhee, 2317 East First Street. I've lived there for 46 years. And since the new schools have been built out there, it is a racetrack in the morning. I back in my driveway. So if I want to leave between 7:30 till 8:30, 8:45, you got to just pick your time to shoot out there because everybody's and when you move Howard to the other side, the Howard School to the other side, it's just going to get worse because Garden City is an offset intersection and the people just fly. I mean, not all the time, but there's a lot of times. And I think it would I'm hoping to save a life someday, but that's up to you guys.
I'm Charlotte Benish. I live at 2333 East First. It is a highway. I live just at a jog of Garden City and Howard, and I have to sit and wait at least 8 minutes to back out of my driveway. The traffic is that bad because I'm dealing with Johnson's Crossing, Grant School, Howard School, and I'm on the jog. So I have 3 directions that I have to watch and hope and pray I don't get rear-ended. So I do agree that 25 miles an hour would be very much appropriate. Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on this item? Okay. Okay, additional comments from council, or we can address the motion if there's any other comments. Okay. Seeing none, Councilman Vaughn, is your motion?
I'll make the motion.
And I second.
Okay, all right. All right, this would be to introduce and hold first reading. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, we'll now have first reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, repealing and replacing and amending chapter 5, article 3 of the Fremont Municipal Code, section 5-301, speed regulations, and all other ordinances and part of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on first reading.
Okay, Councilman Jensen.
I'm going to make the motion to suspend the rules and move this to third and final reading.
Councilman Yerger.
And I'd like to thank Councilman Jensen for doing that. And second.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Thank you.
We'll now have final reading.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, repealing and replacing and amending chapter 5, article 3 of the Fremont Municipal Code, section 5-301, speed regulations, and all other ordinances are part of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect on final reading.
Okay. Cast your final vote on this.
Ordinance is approved 8-0, Mayor.
Woo-hoo, thank you.
Item 28 is a motion to confirm stop loss coverage with QBE at 175,000 individual stop loss and 50,000 aggregate stop loss.
Jennifer McDuffie, Director of Human Resources. So we usually have this conversation every year. This is for our stop loss coverage, which is the reinsurance for the medical insurance that we offer our employees. We currently have Sun Life, and when we asked them for a quote this year, they gave us a 53% increase in premiums. And after I cried a little bit, we went out and asked for some additional quotes. After talking it over with IMA, we are recommending QBE as the new carrier. The coverage amounts will stay the same with one exception. I believe it was last year, maybe the year before, we were lucky enough to not have any lasers anymore. Unfortunately, this year they are putting one laser on this. Some of the other options we had did not put a laser on it, but they were higher rates. And by having a laser, we run a higher risk on that individual. However, it will have a lower risk on the overall rates for the group as a whole because we are taking on more risk. So in order to get this moving forward, we need to accept the quote to lock in the rates. This does come in, I believe it was within 3% of the rates this year. So it's essentially a wash with our rates this year. So I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Any questions? Thank you.
I did have one.
Councilman Vaughn, sorry.
Any changes to coverage? Any changes to coverage levels or benefits or anything like that?
No, this is the reinsurance carrier. So this is the back side of it. The front side employee facing, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, additional comments from council or a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Gibson,
I'll make the motion proof.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 29, resolution 2022-159, awarding bid of Forvis LLP for financial statement audit services for the fiscal years of staff report. Jody, or Dan?
Yep. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Dan Goble, Interim Finance Director. Forvis has been our auditors since fiscal year 2016. And after this past audit, they approached us with a couple concerns regarding their timing of the audit and also their staffing of the audit. After that discussion, it was decided the city would send out requests for proposals for fiscal years 22, 23, and 24 for audit services. So accordingly, staff sent out 12 RFPs to CPA firms, mostly in Nebraska and then also one in Kansas. The RFP was also posted on the city's website. One firm responded with a proposal. Another one cited independence conflicts as the reason for them not to submit a proposal. And a third had contacted us and echoed Forvis's timing and staffing concerns. So it sounds like it's an industry-wide deal there. Forvis was the lone proposal that was submitted. Auditing standards recommend that the auditor have a rotation of at least a partner every 5 years or so. And Forvis, formerly BKD, is big enough that they've had that in the past. We've had 2 different partners and 2 different directors within the last 6 years. Only one of the original team that started back in 2016 is on the engagement, although she has been promoted to a more senior role. Based on the review of the proposal by city staff, the recommendation would be to contract for both services for the Keno agreed upon procedures on an annual basis and also with the fiscal year audit. Annual engagement letters would be signed annually. And the fiscal impact on that would be $92,000 for the financial audit for 2022. The Keno attestation has already been secured for $3,700, and that's on a calendar year. That's why they're kind of on a different schedule there. Then $101,350 for the 23 audit, assuming a single audit is required. That would also include the Keno attestation services in that amount. And then for 2024, $106,350, assuming the same, that a single audit is required there. The 2023 budget to pay for this is $53,000 for the general audit, and for the Keno attestation services, it was $3,700. Finance expects the increase in audit fees to be offset by projected salary savings from 2 positions that we have in the finance department that are currently open. Because time is of the essence on this, this was taken to the UIB earlier this afternoon and was voted on 5-0. With that, I would take any questions the council might have.
Councilman Vaughn.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you know off the top of your head what we paid in 21 or 2019.
It would be in that $53,000 neighborhood.
Yeah, kind of what I assumed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Ellis.
Did they give any reason why the huge jump?
Just staffing. Primarily, it's an industry-wide thing. You can see that by the lack of responses that we have. And I would say the complexity of our financial statements as well, with the utilities being a big piece of that.
Okay, I think you told us that they weren't interested in doing our audits previously. So just giving them more money convinced them that they would be interested. Is it? Yeah. Okay.
Councilman Yerger.
So I'm sensitive to the statements that you made about it's a good policy to have rotation in the audit firms that we use. That's just good general practice. You indicated that they're rotating their partners and their senior audit managers. So that's being attended to in some respect. that is a really important issue, though, that the city needs to be aware of. And I think it's important to understand we didn't get any bidders. And I agree, maybe it's complexity. I do think the profession itself has some issues currently with regards to having requisite staff, so it's not unexpected, but something that we need to keep in mind relative to this going forward. There is perhaps some bit of a rainbow here in some respects, I guess, at least I'm going to ask. Because they've done our audit work since 2016, regardless of the rotations that they've made at the senior leadership, it means that they have access to records dating back as far as 2016, correct?
I don't know where their record retention is, but for us,
How long do they retain city records normally on our behalf? Do they turn them all over to us and retain nothing, or they retain their work product for a period of time? Do you know?
they would retain their own work papers for a period of time.
You don't have any idea how long?
Not from their perspective. No, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kate, any other questions for staff? Comments from the public? Okay. Seeing none, additional comments from council. Councilman Vaughn,
I was gonna make a motion to approve. I don't think we have any other choice.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 30 is a resolution 2022-160 to decline participation in the joint public hearing for political subdivisions requesting an increase in its property tax request of greater than the allowable growth percentage. Now have staff report.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, Jody Sanders, City Administrator. Originally, the first version of your agenda for tonight had a public hearing related to the budget. We were not able to get that published timely. We would have had to have that appear in Friday's paper. It was not in Friday's paper. So we still have the requirement where we need to identify to the county whether or not we expect to participate in the joint public hearing that will be held at the end of September for those political subdivisions that are asking for an increase in their property tax request by more than the increase in their real property growth. We had that conversation last week. I listened, took notes, what various council members said, and came away from that meeting with the idea that council would not, this particular council would not support increasing property tax beyond the allowable growth. And so to make sure that it's clear that it's your choice as council, you have the ability to do this. I put together a resolution that basically states what your intention is relative to that special meeting. And that's the resolution that you see at the end of the agenda tonight for resolution 2022-160. So I take any questions.
Questions? Councilman Legban.
I guess I don't have a question. I just want to thank everyone to put in the time, and we all agreed we did not want to increase our levy. So we do not want to participate, even though the schools may want to, or the county may want to. We did not want to. We wanted to lower our levy. So I want to thank everyone on council that we decided not to, that we're going to keep our levy the same or even lower it, no matter what the schools or the county does. We all agreed to lower our levy.
Councilman Ellis.
When will we be voting on the levy levels?
That would be at the September 13th regularly scheduled meeting. We'll have based on the conversation tonight, we'll have that as part of the agenda on the 13th and the public hearing notice published later this week or next to make sure that there's ample time for the notice.
Okay, so the 13th, is that a special meeting?
No, that would
that's
be the regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay, okay. And just to be, so the public understands that if we vote, the valuation went up. And so in order to keep everything the same, the council would need to lower the levy to keep everything the same. If we leave the levy where it's at, they're gonna, the city's gonna retain more money on the request. So I just want to make that clear.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, comments from the public?
Paul Von Buren, 2046 East 30th. Just a couple of points. As Councilman Nelson pointed out, maintaining the levy is increasing taxes. We've congratulated ourselves, sporadically. I think in the past, we didn't increase taxes because we didn't increase the level. Well, valuations and inflation have taken care of increasing the taxes for us. The thing that, the deeper question here, this becomes a combination of what we can do and what we should do. I'll go back to my earlier comments. The people of Fremont are hurting right now. We've got an economy in recession, we've got record inflation, and it is not going to get better. The forecasts on the horizon are pretty glum. Second, as I mentioned earlier, and nobody's challenged me or tried to prove it wrong, but every measure that I've heard of in the last 10 to 15 years we use for city growth, going to bring in more people. We're going to have more taxable property. We're going to bring in better jobs. The best we have been able to do among all of those is keep salaries roughly equal to inflation when you adjust it. My point of all this is there's what we can do and what we should do. Mr. Mayor and Jody, I would assume you were behind the request or the suggestion that we drop the mill levy and have no property tax increase. That is commendable. Thank you. But given the fact that we've got some genuinely hurting people, it's likely to get worse. We've got $16 million in residual, which our accountants a couple of years ago referred to as embarrassing for the city this size. We seriously need to take a look at living like the people of our city do. They're cutting back, they're pulling the drawstrings on their trousers and their purses, trying to make this thing work. I really want to suggest at the very minimum we should do is drop the mill levy and not raise taxes. We should actually consider a tax increase, or excuse me, wow, sorry about that one. We should consider a tax decrease. It's just, there's a fundamental disconnect between the people and all levels of government, not just here in Fremont, but the idea that the people of Fremont or any jurisdiction can be the continual cash cow with no impact for them. When we say our job is to improve their lives, those two don't match. So what I'm suggesting is at a minimum, no increase. And at a maximum, we seriously need to consider decreasing property taxes in Fremont. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Name is Gene Schultz. I live at 2306 Gene Drive, Fremont. In August of 2009, Barack Obama said, the last thing you want to do is to raise taxes in the middle of a recession. He says, because it takes more demand out of the economy. In October 2010, in a nationally televised debate, Joe Manchin said, I don't think during a time of recession, you mess with any of the taxes or increase any taxes. It seems that Joe Biden is going to test that theory by doing just the opposite. We'll have to see what that brings. I got my utility bill yesterday. The total was $320. 2 months ago, it was $207, a difference of $113. I didn't compare the usage. Maybe I ran the sprinklers a little more, or maybe there were more warm days, but it looked like a 54% increase in just 2 months. So I'll have to deal with that. The price of a 5-ounce, 85% ground chuck patty at Hy-Vee is $3 the last time I looked. A couple months ago, they were priced at $2 each. They were convenient, but I make my own patties now. Unfortunately, I can't make my own gas to power the car. Most families are probably feeling the pinch much more than me. But the point I would like to make is that now is not a good time for the city to be needlessly raising property taxes. I hope the council is listening.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, comments from council, Councilman Yerger.
So I just wanted to get some clarity as well. So we are proactively with this resolution notifying the county we're not going to participate in a three-way. So why we would not have that kind of a public hearing on a joint basis. The other options that are necessary under LB 644, we couldn't have attended to tonight. I'm thinking maybe we could have, but we don't need a public hearing at all, is my understanding, if we just allow the assessed values, which went up, to ride, but we lower the levy correspondingly, therefore we're decreasing. We don't need a public hearing to make that decrease. Is that correct, legal? Okay, and because option 2 that's on your staff report indicates that, yeah, we'd accept the higher assessed values and we would take umbrage to increase the amount of taxes, we would have to have a public hearing for item 2, and that's what's being proposed for discussion at the September 13th meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, could we have just put this all to rest tonight by making notice to the that we were not going to participate in raising taxes whatsoever? That is, we don't opt for option 3, we don't opt for option 2. We're on option 1, and therefore no special public hearing is necessary, and we'd actually be rolling back taxes and we could all go home. Would that have been an option that could have been incorporated in this notice to of resolution to this evening?
I believe it could, yes.
Okay. I'm on the same page as many of those in the public, and I stated my case at the special meeting that we had. The public is hurting right now. I don't think there's any question that the amount of cost that they incur at the pump, at the grocery store, paying their utility bills, trying to make sure that they don't default on their taxes on their homes so that they can continue to live in them, are all on the minds of every citizen in Fremont right now, because inflation is terrible. And this is the wrong time for us to be entertaining any kind of an increase in taxes, even if it is the middle ground, not the maximum amount of increase that we could get. I just feel like the public is looking to us with, what are you going to do for me anytime soon with regards to my tax load? We have an opportunity here to do that, and I wish we had incorporated it, and maybe still should incorporate it in the language that we're passing for resolution tonight and drive this to fruition this evening. The reason being that you really shouldn't be doing one-sided budgeting. That is, we're looking at the potential revenue increase side of things. We've got an opportunity here. We could raise taxes and we could just do it. We haven't had any discussion or looked at any possibilities of lowering costs or expenses or foregoing things that standard families across this town are having to do just to pay the bills. They're having to make choices, hard ones, about what do I pay, what do I buy, do I feed my kids, et cetera. We need to make those same kind of things at the city government level before we would ever entertain any kind of a tax increase amid budgets. We just passed a 22-23 budget, and we should live by it. If anything, we need to try to lower and take the load off the taxpayers of Fremont. So if it's possible, legal, that we could entertain modifying this resolution tonight on the fly to just put an end to this and stay on option 1 with no tax increase. Do you have some recommended language that I could make an amendment that we could do that tonight and just take this off our plate?
I really do not. I'm not sure if the public notice requirement is fulfilled or if we actually do need a public hearing. I mean, I would need to research that issue.
I think 644 at page 3 probably adds some clarity as to the fact, as long as we're not raising taxes, we don't have to have a public hearing. And option 1 would not be a raising of taxes, it would be a lowering of the levy.
But also option 2 accomplishes the same thing.
I know, I'm saying that if we opted to pass on option 2 and actually settled on option 1, no tax increase, therefore we would be actually lowering the levy to the to offset the increased assessed values. I think 644 gives us the latitude to do so without a public hearing. And if that's the case, we could modify the language in this resolution accordingly and be done.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at it, but I can certainly have that ready for next meeting. I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, so no way to do it tonight.
I just wouldn't be comfortable just doing it. I'd have to look into it, honestly.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Vaughn.
Question for staff, Jody. The difference between option 1 and option 2 per $100,000 house. Do you have that number? You're better at math than I am.
So if we were to reduce the levy, it would save someone in $150,000 home. If we were to reduce it and have the same property tax request as the prior year, which we're now on 3 years of that, that dollar amount would be $32 in savings over the course of the year. The option 2, taking the allowable growth, results in a lowering of taxes of about $16 on a $150,000 home. The property tax request does go up, but the levy goes down because of the larger increase in valuations due to the growth that we've talked about of $33 million in valuation.
So your recommendation would be option 2?
That, in my opinion, if I were sitting in your shoes, let me say it that way, I would look strongly at option 2. Again, looking at it from a building block perspective. We've talked about the need for a new fire station or something, some version of addressing our needs with the fire station. We've talked about a new police department. Great, but how will we pay for all of these things? We have $10 million set aside for the police station. That's not going to build a police station. When we look at, you know, we had an area at the tech park where we owned the property. We don't have that luxury now because we can't build on the same location as the existing at the same time, if that makes sense. You know, I think the conventional wisdom is that it doesn't make sense to try and renovate that building. All of those things, including, as I said last week, 3% increases that are baked into your future because of contract labor negotiations, those things are all creeping up on us. And it's easy for a council to say, nope, not this year. Nope, not this year. But at some point, it's going to catch up. And if we're experiencing growth at the rate that we are, services can't contract. They're going to need to expand. And that was the idea behind the additional 6 firefighters. How do you propose to pay for those 6 firefighters after the SAFER grant, which we're still waiting to hear whether or not we've received that grant this year? They will be continuing to announce until the end of September whether or not we got the SAFER grant. If we get the SAFER grant, that gives us only 3 years for those 6 positions. What do we do in year 4? And by taking incremental small amounts every year, again, we're lowering taxes to the individuals. The increase that you're seeing is in the growth in the community.
Thank you, Jody. I think it's easy to say in an election year that I'd lower taxes by X amount, but those incremental steps that you're talking about, I think are very important. Thank you.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Well, passing this resolution doesn't negate more discussion at our next meeting. And certainly a review of our budget or direction we're going and what the needs are.
Okay. Councilman Ellis.
Councilman Yeager, I appreciate your enthusiasm to try to get something done tonight, but I also look very much forward to a deep conversation next meeting concerning the budget and where we're at in 2022 and what the budget looks like for 2023. So I think I'm willing to put it off and just simply vote on this simple resolution stating that we will not participate in the joint public hearing. And I hope that sends a signal to the other folks, the county and the school board. I hope it sends a loud signal to them that they should be doing the same thing.
Councilman Jensen.
If there was no further discussion, I'm just going to move to approve resolution 22160.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 31, I need the language. I don't have it memorized yet. Okay. 31 is an executive session to discuss update regarding pending litigation. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to go into executive session for the purpose of studying pending litigation and further reason that the executive session is necessary for protection of the public interest.
Okay, Councilman Legman.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of pending potential litigation. Is that right, legal? I just want to make sure we get that right. Okay. And for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the pending motion is to go into executive session for the purpose of pending litigation for the reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Cast your vote.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
A motion to go into executive session for the purpose of pending litigation and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest has been approved. Discussion will be limited to pending litigation. No official actions or votes will be taken during the executive session. Now go back to the conference room. Oh, we're gonna probably lose one. Yeah. Because we're here. All right, I'd take a motion to come out of executive session. Councilman Jensen.
I will second.
Need a,
Need a motion.
Vern moved it, yeah. Okay, cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Motion to adjourn. Councilman Jensen.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, Councilman Sukram. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. You know, I only drank half. You wouldn't be happy with me, so.